The meeting of the Accountability, Finance, and Personnel of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Herndon.
Present.
Director Jackson is excused. Director Leonard.
Present.
Director Zomber.
Present.
And Chair Garcia.
Present. The Chair will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and asks those that do not wish to participate to please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted from the Central Services Building. The meeting is also being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services from the Spanish-speaking members of the audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta de la Mesa Directiva de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número. Nuevamente, para escuchar esta reunión en español, llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número.
Gracias. The board will now accept public comments on tonight's agenda items. Speakers may only address the items for which they have registered. Questions from the public will not be answered during the public comment period. Following the public comment period, board members will hold a discussion. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker slip and bring it to our board clerk. Once the committee's discussion has started, no additional speaker slips will be accepted. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a fair chance to speak, the chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201, or fax it to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert Rules of Order dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, committee members, or the administration, are to be directed towards the chair, who will then determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure a good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called, and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or to access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after the meeting of its board and its committees. We have no virtual speakers registered. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access the evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the meetings, agendas, and minutes page of the MPS website. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1.
Madam Chair, item 1 is action on monthly personnel matters, action on classified personnel transactions, action on certificated appointments, actions on leaves of absence, report on certificated resignations and classified retirements, affirmative action report, report on hire data, and report on resignation data. The recommendation is that the board approve the promotions, appointments, and leaves as listed in the attachments to the item to be effective upon approval by the board.
Thank you. Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent. The administration requests your approval of the monthly personnel matters as attached in this month's report. I have with me Adria Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer, to give an update and answer any questions you have regarding this request. Thank you. Adria.
Thank you, Mr. Galvan. Chair Garcia, members of the committee, Adria Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. I just wanted to take a moment to kind of walk through the hire and resignation data that was provided for this month. Have some good news to share. I'm always happy to share good news and let everyone know. When you look through the hire data, for the past 4 years, we have trended and we've been hiring more and more individuals this year. In FY24, we hired 1,448 staff members. So that was some good news. And when you break it down to teachers, again, in FY24, we hired 414 teachers. And in FY23, we hired 361, and even in FY22 we had 331. So you can see a trend that we have hired more teachers over the years. And then this year I added a slide with regards to paraprofessionals because I know that information is important, and I have talked a number of times about how we are needing to fill those positions, and we've seen greater vacancies in that area for the past few years. So this past year in FY24, we hired 291 paraprofessionals compared to FY23, where we hired 272. So we have seen an increase there. So we are filling as much as possible. So on the hiring front, definitely good news. We're hiring more. We are processing more individuals. And then when it comes to termination data, we also equally have good news. On the first termination slide that I have, you could see the breakdown of all the terminations by month for this past fiscal year. And as you suspect, June of 24 is our highest number. We had 229 staff either resign, retire. So that is to be expected. You can kind of see the trends when you look at it over the 12 months. August, September, October, you see some numbers as school starts. You see some higher numbers, but after you get through December, it kind of goes down to spring, and then the numbers jump up again. So that's a typical kind of trend that we see year after year. It'll be a little bit different this upcoming year as we have moved to one calendar. So we'll have all starts at September. So I'd imagine when we look at this data this time next year, we would see a bigger jump when it comes to September resignations. I broke it down also on there to show for your information by teacher, the resignation by month, so you can see it's a very similar trend for teachers as well with other staff. And also I shared the terms for the paraprofessionals as well. But when you get to the slides for FY20 through 24, this is where you can really see the comparison of how our terminations have gone down. Overall, this year for teachers, we had 387 resignations and retirements. That's compared to FY23 when we had 481. So that is definitely an improvement. So we are proud of that, and that our work with regards to retention has taken hold. So we're very excited about that and want to continue that great work. And when you look at the term data for paraprofessionals going from year to year, FY24, we had 206 resignations and retirements for paras. That's compared to 251 from FY23. So again, that's a positive trend, lower amounts of resignations and retirements this year than the previous year. And then the last slide that we have here is the overall staff resignations and retirements for FY20 to 24. You can see in FY24 in total, we had 1,252 staff resign or retire. That's compared to 1,300 in FY23, so that's positive movement as well. So that's just a little bit of information on the hire and the resignation data over the past few years that I thought it's important for the board and the public to see. Just to give a little bit of a vacancy up to date to see where we are. I'm pleased to say that we are in a better spot now as we look towards day one approaching. Right now for core content, we have 94 teacher vacancies. That's probably one of the lowest numbers I've seen in a while when it comes to core content. We still have work to do in the other areas. We have 16.6 art vacancies. We have 26.5 music vacancies. We have made progress on Phi Ed. We have 5 vacancies in Phi Ed. Our paraprofessional vacancies have gone down. We're at 84 right now. And I would say in the middle of the year, towards the end of the year, we're closer to 200 for para vacancies. So this is a great improvement. So very excited about that, but there's still a lot of work to do. And we are continuing to hold recruitment events. We had an event last week, close to 200 individuals attended. We'll be having some more coming up in September, so we're excited about that. Because we do know once the school year starts, things change and these numbers can change. Also happy to announce that we are fully staffed on the building service helpers, our safety assistants. We got a group coming through physical and background checks, but once we get those through, we'll be close to fully staffed for safeties as well. Secretaries, we have a group of 106 that were invited to test, and we have 20 vacancies, so we feel fairly confident that we could get those vacancies down. Great news with food service assistants. We have 69 vacancies. That is the lowest number that we've had in a very long time that I can recall. And we have a number of individuals that are in the pipeline. We've sent interview links to. We have the posting open to the 25th, so we're still accepting applications. And we had a number of individuals apply and test last week that we are processing. So I'm confident we can get that number down even further. So overall, it's a lot of positive news. And I just want to take a moment to thank the Human Resources team. It's been a very busy time from the spring budget process when we had to go through all of the accessing there, and then we've had Head Start moves that we've had to make over the summer. In addition to a regular hiring, the team has really pushed and worked hard from hiring to setting people up for background checks and physicals. It's been a true team effort getting people in the PeopleSoft system. So I really want to take a moment to thank them and thank organizational development and all the other departments and offices in the district that have supported us in bringing these people along. And we're excited for another school year. Thank you.
to just echo the congratulatory spirit. I know that there's a lot of things that are not very public of what happens, what it takes from an application to hiring. So I know that the team has been working hard, and we're seeing some of those results and the trends that are going in a positive direction. So thank you for that. All right. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments? No speakers. All right, do we have committee members that wish to ask comments or make questions? All right, we'll start off with President Herndon, then Director Zambor.
Yes, I quickly want to ask you about the art music FIA teachers, because we initiated that actually in 2020 at the beginning of COVID. So we survived those difficulties with STARS. I'd like to know, in terms of staffing for this fall, you mentioned that we were short some music teachers. How about the other curriculums? And if there are orders in place to bring in the temporary services that we've used in the past?
Administration.
Yes, Chair Garcia, Director Herndon, members of the committee, Adrian Madeline, Chief Human Resources Officer. For music, we have 26.5 vacancies. Phi Ed, we have 5.1 vacancies, and 16.6 for art. Yes, I can confirm that we are working with principals, and if they identify at this point they don't have someone in the pipeline to hire, we're working with them to contract with the vendors to ensure that they have some programming for the start of the year, but we're still processing. We're recruiting, and we'll hire people as quickly as possible. We do have some individuals that we may be able to recruit, our international teachers, that we may be able to fill some of the spots. I think more of like the Phi Ed that we could have filled, but we are making sure that our students, if they can't have a full-time teacher, that they're going to have the one of our vendors supporting. I know we have a number of them that might be a 0.4, a 0.6, a 0.2. Those positions we can't fill, they're hard, and then we'll work directly with the conservatory or with Arts at Large, whoever it may be, so that we can ensure the programming that they have for the start of the year.
Thank you very much.
All right, Director Zambor.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. It's great news to hear that the numbers are better at this time this year. I appreciate the year-over-year comparison, just so we can see the change over time. What would you attribute, why do you think we've been able to hire more teachers this year?
Administration.
Chair Garcia, Director Zambor, members of the committee, Adrian Madeline, Chief Human Resources Officer. I think there's a variety of things when it comes to teaching staff. I think we have been making a concerted effort to look at our recruitments and doing a little more centrally, so that while there might be at school-based, the talent management staff can look and see, are there applicants in there that are qualified? Let's process them. So we have taken a different approach this past year to take a more active role at the central office level to look at the applicants, get them in, and maybe one school might not be a fit for them, but we can find them somewhere else. So I think that has helped. I think also the accessing that was done helped fill some of the vacancies. That doesn't just the hiring. We did promote, we have hired quite a number of paras into teaching positions we promoted, so that's helped, and our work with MPSU has helped with that, where individuals have become licensed and we've been able to permit them so that they become teachers, while previously they were paras for us. So I think those are probably the main factors, I think, that have kind of impacted the hiring. I think the market has changed a little bit. And also, I will say, our international recruitment has helped when we've brought, last year we brought roughly 130 teachers, and we are going to bring in roughly, I would say, 100 more this year.
Any follow-up?
One more follow-up. because one of the things that I think we all probably have been hearing about at the beginning of the year is just concerns about class size, and I know that's always an issue. And maybe some of that could be the beginning of the year, like I know rosters are going to change as we get more accurate information about student enrollment. Do you anticipate that this is going to help class size this year, or just, like keep those lower, or?
Administration?
Chair Garcia, Director Zomber, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. Anytime we are more fully staffed, obviously that will help us with class size in a number of ways. One, hopefully we can reduce splits. We can keep classrooms at a more reasonable number. Another thing that sometimes, at least at this time of the year, until those students are actually in the door, those are paper numbers, right? So sometimes, class sizes may seem a little high and they end up being a little bit low. That's just a function of the way that we enroll students at this point. So parents have choices, and sometimes they hedge their bets, so to speak, and enroll in 2 and 3 different schools. And so then once they come in, we can count them and make adjustments then.
Any follow-up?
Nope, that's helpful. Thank you.
What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Director Leonard.
I move that we accept the monthly personnel matters as presented by administration.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, will the secretary please call a roll?
On Director Leonard's motion to approve the administration's recommendations, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber,
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases or decreases, and limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days. The recommendation is that the board approve the appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases or decreases, and limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days as listed in the attachments to the item to be effective upon approval by the board.
Thank you. Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent, the administration requests your approval of this item as it pertains to recommendations for appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, as well as salary increases or decreases and LTE appointment. I have with me Adrian Madeline to outline this item and respond to any questions you may have. Thank you. Adrian.
Thank you, Mr. Galvan. Chair Garcia, members of the committee, Adrian Madeline, Chief Human Resources Officer. As we approach the start of the school year, as you can see, we have filled a number of principal and assistant principal vacancies, so we're very excited about that, so that our schools can have full administrative teams in place for the start of the school year. Also, I want to highlight we've had some positions in finance, in particular, with the manager of financial reporting, which I know is a very important position for the CAP. So we're very excited that we're able to fill that position and are able to move forward. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the board of the public that wish to make comments on this item?
There are no public comments, speaker slips.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask any questions? Director Leonard.
So every August, I usually have grave concerns when I see these kind of numbers. We don't get this. We usually have lucky if we have a whole page at all, if we're lucky. So this is actually good news. I'm just happy to see so much is moving in the right direction. I'm thrilled that we are starting to place people in finance so that we can move forward in that direction. I will not speak to that in detail because I don't have that expertise, but I know that Mr. Chasen does over there, so maybe he can throw his 5 cents in there if you would like. But otherwise, thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. Chasen, would you like to say some words about that?
Sure, thank you, Chair Garcia. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. Yes, the Financial Reporting Manager is a key position as it relates to our satisfaction under the Corrective Action Plan from DPI. We have a very good individual in that role through the recommendation. We appreciate the board's flexibility to allow us to get the person into the role with the reporting to you at this time. We're excited to have the person in that role and move the work. Thank you.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? President Herndon.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of administration in relation to this item.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Herndon's motion to approve the administration's recommendation, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber,
Aye.
and Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. And before we proceed to the next item, on behalf of the board, I would like to congratulate all of the candidates listed in the previous two items. And if you're in the room, stand up. You are now one step closer to appointment, promotion, or transfer. Congratulations. All right, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is report with possible action on limited-term employees, January through June of 2024. The recommendation is that the board approve the limited-term employment contracts as attached.
Thank you. Would administration please present the item?
Sorry about that, excuse me. Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent. This evening, we present to you a report on the limited-term employees, LTEs, between January and June of 2024. I have with me Carol Eady to outline this report and respond to any questions you may have. Thank you. Ms. Eady.
Thank you, Mr. Galvan. Chair Garcia, members of the committee, Carol Eady, Senior Director of Benefits, Pension, and Compensation. The report before you is our standard 6-month report that outlines the limited-term employees, their hours and earnings for that period, as well as their life-to-date earnings and hours. And happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments on this item?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask any questions? President Herndon.
My question is simply that this list is extensive, in my opinion. Are there efforts to try to hire these people on at any point in time?
Administration.
Chair Garcia, President Herndon, Director Herndon, members of the committee. Most of our, if not all of our LTEs are retired, so many of them have one to wait for that period of time before they can become employed again, and then we bring them on as they're available, and many of them won't want to be rehired. I don't know.
Thank you. Then what is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item?
Chair Garcia,
Yes.
actually, this was an informational item only, so no action is required.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you for the information. All right, I guess next item, please.
Item 4 is action on the authorization to enter into a contract with Hazard Young Atia and Associates for superintendent search services. The recommendation is that the board approve the contract with Hazard Young Atia and Associates as presented in the attachment.
Thank you. With the Office of Board Governance, please present the item.
Yes, Chair Garcia, on August 8th, the board directed the Office of Board Governance in collaboration with the Office of Administration to negotiate a contract with Hazard Young Atia and Associates for a superintendent search services. That contract is before you tonight, and we are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. We do have one speaker slip here. Mr. Claiborne, can you please approach the podium?
Hi, Quentin Claiborne, K-L-A-B-O-N. Thanks for your time. Hi, so I think Hazard Young Atria is as good a choice for any in the search. They famously got the superintendent of Miami-Dade County, easily the most successful urban superintendent in the country, though hopefully we have a nice streak starting here, to move to a difficult situation in Los Angeles. According to them, they'll use the same 4 people for our search, which is really Great. I was also really impressed with their choice for Memphis Shelby County, which is much like the city, school system, and political environment in Milwaukee. And that choice has already dredged up some mismanagement issues and begun to implement reforms. So first, as you have those September conversations, maybe ask like, what was the secret sauce to get those superintendents? Secondly, I can't tell if it's their process that's really good or just their connections. I read, for example, their Atlanta leadership profile, and their final 5 big characteristics were very experienced, good communicator, equity-driven, evidence-driven, and Atlanta knowledgeable. And that's extremely generic. So second, rather than vibes, I hope that your September discussions with them focus on skills. Maybe the superintendent should have success implementing reading or other curriculum reforms. Maybe they should have a financially tight ship or experience some kind of state-led review. Maybe managing the resources of a shrinking district or a shrinking city rather than, Florida or Texas or something like that. And then balancing perhaps union needs with also efficiency gains. Third, I hope the board and maybe leadership could, as people are at other political events right now, I was wondering if they could describe the input that county, city, state have had on the search so far, if they're only going to drop in September. And lastly, thanks for including a suggestion to include a free redo of the search if the superintendent leaves within 2 years. God forbid that happens, but it was nice to see the Journal Sentinel wrote about that. It shows that like you're in control of the situation, have thought about, have an insurance policy if something, doesn't work out. But I think just little things like that hopefully just build respect for the district. So thanks for including it.
Thank you. Do we have any committee members that wish to make comments or ask questions? No? All right, then what is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? President Herndon.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of administration.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Madam Chair, on President Herndon's recommendation to approve the administration's recommendation, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber,
Aye.
Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Our next item is action on a request to revise a memorandum of understanding with the Milwaukee Public Schools Foundation. The recommendation is that the board approve the revisions to the MOU with the Milwaukee Public Schools Foundation as presented in the attachment to the item.
Excellent. And before we go on, I would like to pass the gavel, as I would like to recuse myself. I'm a proud member of that board, and I just want to make sure that there's no conflict of interest and that I'm stepping out as we were making this decision. So, Director Leonard.
Thank you. So first I have to ask, I guess, administration, are you going to present the item? Oh, never mind. I have my book. Thank you. So would the Office of Accountability and Efficiency please present the item? Apologize.
Chair Leonard, Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. So the Milwaukee Board of School Directors has a relationship with the MPS Foundation through a memorandum of understanding, an MOU. The most current version that was approved by the board in 2023 provides for the foundation to receive support from MPS as an in-kind contribution, specifically provides for loaned MPS employees to perform work for the foundation and support its mission and purpose. The attached MOU contains updated language to bring some clarity and consistency around the application of other board governance policies and administrative policies as it relates to MPS employees. I'll simply say, to provide additional clarity, what the proposed changes are and are not. They are not intended to bring internal audit services oversight over the MPS Foundation's operations or finances. That is covered in other portions of the MOU. What it is intended to do is just, again, provide consistency and clarity for those staff that are under MPS as the employer of record. The changes have been vetted by the city attorney. This particular approach exercises specific language that's in the MOU for the board's consideration. I'll just say what reads in Section 17, that MPS reserves the right in its sole discretion to terminate or modify any of the following items if it is determined by the Milwaukee Board of School Directors that termination or modification is in the best interest of MPS. Should it be the desire of this committee to accept the recommended changes in order to bring alignment to that language in the MOU, I would ask that motion contain the expression as determined in the best interest of MPS to bring that alignment. I'll simply add too, prior to the most current version of the MOU, which has some call-out language regarding the role of audit services, it was practiced for 15 years or plus that MPS employees under MPS as the employer of record would be subject to the policies that I cite here, Board Governance Policy 212, specifically under internal audit services. And I think this simply provides the oversight and accountability that's consistent with the rest of the district employees. With that, to answer any questions you might have.
So first, is there anyone in the public that wishes to make comments? I'm not sure if we got any slips, but
We have no speaker slips.
no
on.
speaker slips? Okay, thank you. Then committee members, do you have any comments or want to ask any questions? And Director Zomber, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Leonard. I'll be brief. I think that, the MPS staff that are loaned to the foundation, they're paid for by the taxpayers, and as such, they should be subject to the same audit requirements that all MPS staff are. So I just want to thank the OAE for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Director Herndon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For clarification for the public, I want the public to understand this in more simpler terms, if you will, which is that the district loans an employee to the MPS Foundation. And what we're asking here is that vacations be followed so that a person would be treated as though they were working in a school or in administration, in the administration building, in terms of that information, vacation, sick time, et cetera, that is true of any corporation really would be tracked. Is that the simplest terms to explain it? Hopefully people understand that. So that's just making sure that we're tracking that and therefore making sure that if a person takes a week's vacation, that there's a record of it with the district. And if it's appropriate for pay or without pay, the district handles that as well.
What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Oh, I'm sorry, Director Zomber, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Leonard. I move approval of the OAE's recommendation regarding the revised MOU with the Milwaukee Public Schools Foundation.
Any further discussion?
As determined in the best interests of MPS.
Thank you. If there's no more discussion, Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
On Director Zomber's motion to approve OEE's recommendation to revise the Memorandum of Understanding with the Milwaukee Public Schools Foundation as determined in the best interest of MPS, then Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber.
Aye.
And that is 3 ayes, the motion passes.
And with that, I hand the gavel back to Director Garcia.
Thank you so much. All right, so next item, please.
Item 6 is action on monthly finance matters, authorization to make purchases, reports on change orders in excess of $25,000, and cumulative purchases in excess of $50,000. Report on contracts under $50,000 and cumulative total report, report on monthly grant awards, and acceptance of donations. The administration recommends that the board authorize the purchases and accept the donations as listed in the attachments with the appropriate acknowledgement to be made on behalf of the board.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent. For this item, we are requesting your approval of the monthly finance matters. Janina Domchek, Director of Procurement Risk Management, is here to assist with any questions you may have regarding this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments on this item?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? We'll start off with Director Leonard, then President Herndon.
Just a couple of things. So one thing is, when I'm reading about the different truck purchases, if I remember correctly, this is always done in a group, so to speak. Do I understand that correctly? It's like we don't do a purchase here and there. We look at the number of obsolete trucks, and then we go to the process of purchasing those vehicles. At least that's the way it looks like to me, because I don't remember doing this in previous years.
Administration?
Sean Kane is coming to the microphone, and he will answer that question.
Excuse me, Chair Garcia, members of the committee, Director Leonard, Sean Kane, Senior Director for Facilities Maintenance Services. We take a look at our fleet inventory and whatever we get for the construction 210 fund that we got. So we had some good funds made available to this year. And right now we're looking to do a purchase up to about $1.2 million. And this had to do with dump trucks, Rangers, whatever we need for plowing, seasonal work, et cetera. So right now we are at getting to a better point where we're actually improving the fleet, but it's just basically recycling through we have vehicles that are over 20 years old.
Yeah.
Any follow-up?
No, thank you. I think this is in the same item. Just looking at the taxi service increases in demand, I guess my question is, this is not for transportation on busing. This is purely for those pickups that we have to do through the course of the year? I mean, or am I misunderstanding what this item really is?
Administration?
Chair Garcia, Director Leonard, members of the committee, Janina Domchek, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. These are services for students that are living in temporary situations. So they tend to be like one student here, one student there. So we need to get them to and from school. So this is throughout the year, and we've had a lot more need than in prior years.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking, because I'm looking at, I believe there's 4 different companies with $7.2 million total. And to me, it seems, now I don't want to say excessive because I have no idea what that cost really involves, but I just need some details on that because it seems a lot to me, just for those services.
Administration?
Chair Garcia, Director Leonard, members of the committee, Janina Domchek, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. Because these students tend to be, we're providing them transportation, and it's not they're an individual. It tends to be more frequent, and we have to look at the different locations. So we have different bus companies, different services to help provide those services. So we're able to address all the needs of our district.
Any follow-up?
No. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, President Herndon.
Thank you. Director Leonard took most of the question I was going to ask, which was, did you really see an increase in basically homelessness? And you indicated yes. And that would be the cost for the increased services. That is an awful lot for transportation, but I do understand. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have one speaker slip. Mr. Quentin Claybon, if you want to approach the podium, please.
Hi, Quentin Claybon, K-L-A-B-O-N. Yeah, mine was just on the rideshare services as well. Yeah, thanks for explaining the purpose. I wasn't sure if it was like to internships to, around the city, or if it was it sounds like it's for temporary housing. I was just wondering if it's possible to describe like what the process is. Obviously, kids having attendance and kids feeling safe, getting to school is the most important thing. But if it's increasing and increasing in a kind of a tough budget year, I was wondering if you could describe the process, if leadership could describe the process for figuring out if kids are on pre-existing bus routes that could be altered, or if, point-to-point service is the only way. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Is there any other comments or questions from the committee? Director Zambor?
Thank you, Chair Garcia. I actually have a question on the monthly grants awards. I was just wondering if administration could talk a little bit about the grant for the Community Project Funding Success Center expansion, just to get a little bit more background. And then I also, really quick, just want to thank the administration for working to get the grant to support the menstrual equity program at High School of the Arts. I was really happy to see that in there, so thank you.
Administration.
I apologize, Director Garcia. Director Zambor, could you repeat that first part?
Yeah, there was a congressional appropriation for community project funding for the Success Center expansion. It looks like it's to include grades K4 through 3. I was just wondering.
Go ahead.
Director Zambor, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. Mr. Harris, he's coming. We will get you that information. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. So then what is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Director Leonard.
So I move that we accept the action on monthly finance matters presented by the administration.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? All right, seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Yes, on Director Leonard's motion to accept the administration's recommendation on monthly finance matters, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber,
Aye.
and Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
The next item is action on the award of exception to bid contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the exception to bid contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Thank you. Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent, we are asking for your approval of this month's exception to bid contracts. Janine Adamczyk, Director of Procurement and Risk Management, is here to assist with any questions you may have regarding this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments on this item?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
All right, thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask any questions? Director Leonard?
This is more of a, for the public's knowledge and my knowledge, to be honest. So when I look at the costs for the hiring outside services, from what I can do on my my level, it seems to me that it is cheaper, less expensive to use some of the outside services within reason as compared to if we hired people as full-time workers with benefits, et cetera. Am I correct in that assumption?
Administration?
Chair Garcia, Director Leonard, members of the committee. It's hard to answer that question straight out, yes or no. It depends on the situation. Some of our services that we contract for, because of the nature of whether the hours are reduced or it's a specific time frame, could be a little bit less expensive, and obviously the amount, the numbers involved in the contract, whether that's a larger amount of professionals, so to speak, could lower that cost, but it's hard to say directly. And in many cases, some of the contracts that we go into is because, for example, we can't find those individuals to hire. So there's not a direct way I could say that it's cheaper one way or the other. It may be a little bit more per hour in one regard and a little bit less in another.
Any follow-up, Director Leonard?
No, just a observation. So if we would be consolidating buildings and locations over time, I'm going to assume and it's an assumption, that we would be reducing the number of staff that we would need overall possibly. I'm not quite sure actually, because it really depends on how many buildings you would actually be consolidating on. I'm just curious as to the mindset that we have at this point in time with that.
Administration.
Chair Garcia, Director Leonard, members of the committee, as part of the long-range facilities master plan, we will have more information regarding that. That's part of what they're going to do for us in terms of looking at the distribution of employees and programs. Again, in terms of saving money from a standpoint of a building, our data shows that we wouldn't save necessarily a lot of money in that regard. However, in terms of possibly feeling harder to fill vacancies and some of those positions, obviously those individuals would be available hopefully and would remain with us as we consider consolidating.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? No? Okay, then what is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Would anyone like to make a motion? Director Leonard, thank you.
I move that we accept the exception to bid item that's been accepted, but that's been presented by administration.
All right, is there any further discussion? All right, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Leonard's motion to accept the exception to bid contracts as presented by administration, Director Herndon? Aye. Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director Zomber?
Aye.
Chair Garcia?
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 8 is action on the award of professional services contracts. The administration recommends that the board authorize the professional service contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
You would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent. This evening, we are asking for your approval of the professional services contracts before you. Janina Domchak, Director of Procurement and Risk Management, is with me to assist with any questions you may have regarding this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments on this item?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask any questions? All right. What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? President Herndon.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of administration.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? All right, seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
On President Herndon's motion to accept the administration's recommendation, President Herndon?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director Zomber?
Aye.
And Chair Garcia?
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item 9 is action on monthly facilities matters, FMS award of construction, construction services contracts, and change order recommendation. The administration recommends that the board approve the attached construction contract, construction services contract, and change order.
Thank you. Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent, we're asking for your approval of awards, contracts, and recommendations as attached to this month's facilities matters. I have here with me Sean Kane, Senior Director of Facilities and Maintenance Services, to address any questions you have concerning this item. Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask any questions? All right, Directors on board.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. The Tatlet replacement at McNair, can someone just talk about that briefly?
Administration.
Chair Garcia, Director Zomber, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Senior Director for Facilities Maintenance Services. Unfortunately, we had vandalism that occurred at the tot lot at McNair, and a fire was lit, so we basically have to replace it.
Any follow-up?
Yes. I actually have another question. Are we borrowing for the recreation center costs for the other item?
Administration?
Good evening, Chair Garcia, Director Zombor, Lynn Greb, and members of the committee. I'm Lynn Greb, Recreation Director. No, that money has been encumbered. That money was allocated through last fall's adjustment, so the funding for that project has already been allocated and sits within the extension fund.
Any follow-up?
No, thank you.
Is there any other committee members? Oh, Mr. Chason.
Thank you, Chair Garcia, Matt Chason, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. I've asked this question before, and Rick has a good answer, but just for the listening public who this topic might be new, since there are several other recreation players in the space, the city and the county, with MPS making this investment in the community space, my sense is that there's some collaboration and coordination with recreation spaces and facilities with both the city and the county. But I was just wondering if the administration could let us know how we coordinate that.
Administration, please.
Good evening, Chair Garcia, Mr. Chason, members of the committee, Lynn Greb, Recreation Director. We do meet quarterly with the Milwaukee County Parks and the City of Milwaukee's Recreation Facilities Group. So we're all on the same page with major projects that we have that we're undertaking. We know this is an area of our community that has a great need for a community center like this. Everybody on that planning team agrees, and we're really excited to get going with the project. So thank you.
Director Zombor.
Thank you. Actually, I do have one more question about the McNair Tatlet. What's the future plan for the McNair site? I'm just wondering.
Administration.
Chair Garcia, Director Zomber, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Senior Director for Facilities Maintenance Services. As we all know, that Milwaukee Excellence was the leasee there, and they vacated this back June 30th. So right now, it's a vacant property, and we're taking a look at, especially when we have the long-range facilities master plan, and then some of the emergency sites that we're looking through with the city of Milwaukee.
Any follow-up?
Thank you, Chair Garcia. Would it make sense to postpone? Is the damage so bad, or would it make sense to postpone until we get a little bit further in the long-range facilities plan?
Mr. Kane.
Chair Garcia, Director Zomber, Sean Kane, Senior Director Facilities and Maintenance Services. Right now, we're trying to recover the costs through insurance purposes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, committee members? All right, seeing none. What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Director Leonard.
So I move that we accept the monthly facilities matters as presented by the administration.
All right, is there further discussion? All right, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Leonard's motion to accept the monthly facilities matters as presented, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber,
Aye.
and Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 10 is action on a request for authorization to enter into a master license agreement with T-Mobile Central LLC, a Delaware limited liability company for telecommunications sites. The administration recommends that the board approve the site license agreement described above.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent, we are requesting your approval to enter into a license agreement with T-Mobile Central LLC. I have here with me Mr. Sean Kane to outline this agreement as attached. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Garcia, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Senior Director Facilities Maintenance Services. This is a master license agreement that we've vetted through with the city of Milwaukee and our own procurement department to take a look at ways for efficiencies to work with the cell providers. Recently, we did one with AT&T, so this is another one where it's a master license, and then also any other sites that they are involved with. They typically have FCC regulations that they have to do some upgrades and stuff to their equipment, but also it's a nice funding source for schools as well as part of the revenue that's given to us each year.
Thank Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make any comments or ask questions? President Herndon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, this is an opportunity for the schools to earn money by having the tower on the property, correct?
Administration.
Chair Garcia, Director Herndon, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Director of Facilities Maintenance Service, yes. It's an opportunity for the schools to have revenue for their specific school account.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Director Zambor.
I move approval of the administration's recommendation to terminate a lease agreement with Groundwork. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong, I have the wrong agenda item up. That's the next agenda item. I move approval of the administration's recommendation regarding the T-Mobile license agreement.
Thank you for that. Is there any further discussion? All right, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Zomber's motion to approve the administration's recommendation to enter into a license agreement with T-Mobile Central, Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director Zomber?
Aye.
And Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 11 is action on a request to terminate a lease agreement with Groundwork Milwaukee at Golda Meir School located at 227 West Pleasant Street. The administration recommends that the board approve the attached termination of the lease agreement with Groundwork Milwaukee.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent, we are requesting your approval to terminate a lease agreement with Groundwork Milwaukee, INC. I have here with me Sean Kane to outline the termination request as attached. Thank you. Mr. Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Galvan, Director Garcia, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Senior Director for Facilities and Maintenance Services. Groundworks is an entity that was leasing space over at the Golda Meir Upper Campus. They have been with us since 2018, and they really do a lot of green initiatives working with the school, particularly with Golda Meir. It's just been not a financially viable option for them anymore. And, part of the lease agreement that they do have the right for the request for termination, and working with them as a partner over the years, we're accommodating. We're putting in the recommendation to accommodate.
Thank you for that. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
All right, do we have any committee members that wish to make comments or ask questions? President Herndon.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of administration.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? All right, seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
On President Herndon's motion to accept administration's recommendation, Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director Zomber?
Aye.
And Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
Will there be no further business before the committee? This meeting is adjourned.